G'day, you legends. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is my conversation with Dr. April Brown. April is an intimacy expert and she has literally helped thousands of couples. We had a pretty cool chat and I liked talking to her about these couple retreats she takes clients on, which are quite different to the traditional type of couples therapy. All right, guys, quick shout out to the website, danthomas.net. That's where you can find all updates on the show. There's also the show Patreon page and Instagram at Supercharged Mojo. All right, let's go. Kick us off by sharing what led you to this as your main focus through your work, and were there any particular challenges that you overcame to get to where you are today? It's a big question, but just to get the ball rolling.
Yes. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me on the show for number one. Yes.
My pleasure.
Yes. So I guess one of my starting back in the beginning of my days, I used to work as an accountant for a franchise of pizza. And so as an accountant, it's the same old thing over and over every month, basically. And I got kind of boring, and I was about to have a family, and I was working about 80 hours a day, a week or whatever. And what happened to me was I got kind of burned out, and I felt like my higher power, God told me to take time off. And so I did. I took time off. Didn't want to because I like to work. But then after I took time off, spent about 4 months with the child, I had to get back to work. And I was like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I had these visions of me helping people, counseling people. And I felt like that was my higher power telling me. And I was like, I don't like people. I really don't. I like my numbers. I can't. Yeah. I do not like people. And what happened was I was like, okay, I'm going to put my faith in and I'm going to trust. And I went back to school and got my degree. But in that process, there was a lot of challenges that happened. I lost two people in my family during that time period. Also, I was a single mom and I brought my kid with me to go to school, try to put her in daycare, but she got so sick and a variety of things. So a family member had to take her away from me so I could finish. And that was just really a tough time, to be away from your child and stuff, but I made it through. And from there, I actually majored in school counseling, and that's where my grandmother was a school counselor. She was the first Black school counselor in South Carolina in the States here.
Oh, wow.
So that was inspiring for me. However, she passed away and didn't get to see me actually become that. And actually, after doing that, I actually became a career counselor, school counselor. And in that process, I met another lady who started to help me in opening up my private practice of the mental health aspect. And working as a single mom, also to take care of my parents, just working, trying to do the private practice and that. I didn't really feel like, relationships, I'm not sure if that's for me or whatever. Started to date a little, got involved with somebody back in the day. And then, of course, as things happened, someone broke my heart. And I was like crying about it and all that and talking to God. And he was like, well, you need to go back to school. And I was like, for what? And he was like, yeah, you need to go get your doctorate. God, I'm talking to you about breaking up in a relationship, not to go back to school. But, as I try to follow, so I did. And in the process of and I was working at the university at the time. And at the process of going back to school and almost finishing up with my dissertation, I got very, very sick to the point where I even had to have surgery. Really, really sick at the end. But I did my dissertation, went into surgery. It was supposed to be published by then, but it didn't happen. And I had after surgery, and this was at the end of the year, I had 2 or 3 days to get everything signed so I could finish. Somehow I was able to make through that, and I was able to finish. Then, of course, as time goes on, my daughter's leaving me also. She's about 18 at the time. She's going off to college, and I'm starting to miss her and think I have a lot of great time of just being by myself. But then my boss dies, which was totally unexpected. And If I didn't have that degree, I wouldn't have been able to get my boss position because she died. This was at a big university, and for me to be the director of their whole counseling thing. So that happened. So that was the purpose of that degree in that aspect. And then after that, of course, I met someone else and started a relationship again. And in that process, that also led me into working more with relationships and relationships and relationships. And I felt like that was also, it led me into sex therapy. And I know I was like, at first I was debating, but God, I felt like God was like, April, this is what you need to do. And I was like, oh, no one's going to listen to me about Christianity and sex and Christianity. But yes, I did that. And in the process of all that, created what I've created in the sense of these intimate relationships, books about it, and that kind of stuff. A few years ago, of course, someone else broke my heart. And I was like, God, maybe relationships isn't for me. You know, I should just sit home and just not do anything. But he said, no, you have a purpose. You know what you're talking about. And it's like, oh my gosh, but I haven't really met the person that had all the things that I needed. And through that process of trying to really understand, focusing a little bit on myself and what I really needed, I did finally meet someone and, you know, about to get married and all that. But it's been a process, you know. There's been other challenges in my life that we can talk about, from, you know, race to health issues to taking care of my elderly parents. But that's just a summary of a variety of things.
No, that's quite the journey. Yeah, this idea of I've heard it before, but this idea of like getting yourself right and then everything else kind of falls into place, as opposed to trying to, like, these times that you kept asking your higher self, you kept saying, you know, um, perhaps I need this or that, and it kept telling you, no, you need something else. It seemed like it was almost always pushing you in a way to find your thing and get all that going, and then perhaps the rest would would be attract to that. Does that make sense?
No, it does. It does make sense. It does make sense because even in the sense of the previous relationship, that helped me. Great guy, but he helped me build my brand. You know what I'm saying? He helped me create. I have a group practice and all that kind of stuff. So everything is a lesson, and I learn from it, and you grow. You know, I believe everybody comes in your life for a reason.
Mm.
You
Yeah,
know?
people present at the right time, and things aren't often what
Yes.
you think they're, maybe why they're presenting, but then it makes sense in hindsight. It's pretty crazy. You just gotta kind of go with the roller coaster. But you're right. It's always like people present when they need to, and things. I firmly believe in that.
Yes, definitely, definitely. And I think some people get stuck, you know, and they don't want, when things happen, they get stuck. And but I do think in this life you're gonna have challenges. Everybody has challenges. It's how you overcome them.
Exactly. So I imagine you might think of intimacy in more of a broader sense. I mean, there's many aspects to intimacy. There's intimate relationships, but then there's like uh, the non-romantic relationships, relationships to yourself. It's like intimacy. I haven't, until I was reading a little bit of your background, I hadn't actually thought of intimacy in kind of a much. It's very much associated with romantic relationships, but I guess it's a lot broader than that.
Right, right. When you're truly intimate, you're fully present.
Mm.
Yeah, and you really need to have an intimate relationship with yourself and understanding what's going on with you mentally, psychologically, and all that other stuff. I'm a very spiritual person, so it's very also good to have a higher power or something connecting, you know, of whatever this universe was created. But then it's also those intimate relationships with friends, with your children, with your parents, and of course, even with your coworkers and bosses. It's truly being fully present.
Yeah, present, being present and connected with,
Authentic.
yeah, authentic and connected, for sure. So would you say it's so important to have that intimate relationship with yourself first?
Yes, yes, I definitely agree with that. And many times we are not taught that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, yeah, we don't know how to, and it saddens me to, I'm a mental health therapist, and to work with individuals who put themselves down so much.
Mm.
And, you cannot divorce yourself, you know? And yeah, the world can
Yeah.
be tough and they say things about you, but when you say things to yourself that are negative, it's really impacts you.
Yeah, I often say in a creative sense when there's some criticism or whatever, I'm like, I can actually handle the criticism because often it doesn't compare to the criticism I lay on myself. Like I'm my own worst critic, and it's like, well, but then I think, would I really speak to anyone else like I do to myself
Exactly.
sometimes? It's
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And in all the religions, one of the things they all say is you have to love your neighbor as yourself. And many sometimes people struggle with loving themselves,
mm.
and you got to look, we all make mistakes. I make mistakes every day, but you have to look at it as we're a work in progress.
And
That's what
like
I
we
say. Yeah.
yeah, and like we said earlier, but by loving yourself, then the rest can fall into place as opposed to seeking some outside thing that's going to give you the what what you think is the intimate relationship with yourself, whereas actually it's the reverse.
Right. Right. Because people will treat you the way you treat yourself.
Mm. Exactly. How could they not? If that's how could they not?
Yes. Yes. And
it's
so, yeah.
so it sounds quite straightforward to say it now, but I like, when I was much younger and stuff, it just yeah, it wasn't so straightforward, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so when we have challenges, which you think we all do, yeah, you got to learn how to overcome it, but not beat yourself up. You, I would say to myself, I do, you know, as I learn through life, I will do better as I learn. You know what I'm saying? So it's
Mm.
pushing yourself forward, not getting stuck.
Yeah, and there's so many lessons in everything, right? It's how we respond to things. um
Yeah, definitely,
mm.
definitely. Yes, yeah.
So what do you recommend to clients and so on who have, well, particularly to a romantic relationship, if they've lost that feeling of intimacy? We're in a pretty hectic world right now where people are pretty busy, and often in long-term relationships and stuff, it's hard to find or make. I guess it's about making the space, when you're living together, and just parenting and responsibilities. What do you recommend for couples or individuals?
Yeah, so one of the things I've learned through all my experiences and through counseling, of course, is setting time aside. Sometimes we're always so working to pay the next bill, to get the next profit, but we don't actually set time to rest and to play, which is what really does help us boost us and keep us motivated. So as busy couples, we schedule meetings and we schedule this. Maybe it's time as a couple to schedule, hey, we have this on the calendar. This is what we're going to try to do, whether it's every other week, once a week. We're going to try to find some time just for us. No phones, no nothing, just us spending time together, whether it's dancing, playing a game, you know, doing
Yeah,
creative stuff.
I think maybe people don't want it to feel like work or a task, but if we don't schedule stuff, time just gets away and our time gets hijacked. And I guess this goes back to also the relationship with ourselves as well. Like what time do you need to set aside um to to put into that intimate relationship with yourself, as well as what time do you need to set as it sounds really practical and stuff, but it's like if you don't consciously do that, like, just can get caught in that constant, wheel of doing stuff.
Yeah, but when you think about scheduling things, when you schedule things, you put it as a priority. I mean, that's how I knew what to show up right now because I schedule it. I put it as a priority. So if you do the same with finding things for yourself to do or for you in a couple, that's putting it as a priority. And that's important.
Yeah. Yeah, it's with exactly. It doesn't mean it's boring. It means it's priority.
Right, exactly, exactly. And when you look at intimacy and even the full sexual intimacy, it really should just be about play.
Mm,
Because if we get so goal focused about this and that in an intimate relationship, then it becomes we get so like performance anxiety and get so stressed, am I looking right, and all this other stuff. But when we were kids, just like I see the Superman behind you. When you played, you were just fully present. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. 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 Maintaining that. As we get older, it's kind of tricky to maintain that. We get so serious as adults, it's just,
mm-hmm.
and you're right. Kids are just so free and present and, focused on what's in front of them as opposed to like worrying about what's next week.
Right,
There's
exactly.
a lot to learn from them. So, but yeah, I guess often in long-term relationships, very long-term relationships, it's hard for people to keep it fresh, call it fresh. So you'd recommend a similar approach, right? Presence and play and
Right, and then try what you like as a couple at 20 may be different than what you like at 40. And it's okay to try new things. You try something, if you don't like it, don't do that again. Try something else.
how important is honesty in relationships to you?
I think honesty is critical. First thing, there's the honesty with self. And then, of course, honesty with the other person, but it's how you present it. So sometimes when people are thinking, oh, I tell the truth, but I just, tell it as is. But that's not the kind of customer service we do in business. When we have clients, we're really, or when we're talking with our employees, we're really sandwiching things. We say nice things and then we say something in the middle and then we say, compliment at the end. You have to do the same thing when you're in a relationship. Don't just slam it on the table,
Mm.
and said like, you didn't do the dishes, yada, yada, yada. Start off with something gentle. Honey, I really do appreciate it and stuff of everything you do. I'm feeling disappointed because this wasn't done because of this and that. And I hope we can work together. Yeah, sandwich it.
It's funny. I live in Germany, and Germany's very direct.
Right.
It's very literal. It's very direct. And I come from Australia, which is a little more. We kind of dance around things a little bit, and I've been here a long time now, and sometimes as an Australian, I get, oh, you guys are not direct enough. But I have perhaps overcompensated in a way, and now at times, exactly what you're saying, I've probably been a little too direct. As you said, don't slam it on the table.
Right.
It's tricky because I'm in a culture where that kind of happens. So now I have pulled my back to a place of exactly what you're saying. Like, don't lead in with just like a smash. Come from a place of try and come from a place of understanding.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. And because you have to realize that you and your partner are on the same team, and many times your partner is not really trying to hurt you. Hurting people hurt people. You know what I'm saying? But if they have a good intention.
Mm. and
Yes.
and often I've noticed often a resentment can build about something, and then when the argument happens, say the argument's about the fridge was a bad
Right.
example, but it's not actually about the fridge, it's the
Right.
underlying resentment. So I I'm no expert, I'm just speaking from many relationships like yourself, and uh I just know that if this resentment has too much time to kind of build, then the arguments, they're not about the fridge, there's all this underlying stuff. So my approach anyway is just to kind of try and address those potential resentments early on and talk about them, like you say, as a team.
Right, definitely. And that's when you asked about honesty. So if something bothers you and you just don't say it, you're not being honest with yourself, you keep it, to yourself. And then, like you said, it builds, builds, builds. That's why if something bothers you, you need to present it. And you need to present it right then and there, not, days later, weeks later, whatever the case may be. Yeah, because then you're like blindsiding someone. So it's really, yeah.
So sometimes the argument is just about the fridge. Like I might be overthinking it, but often I know there is an underlying thing, and
Mm-hmm.
it's easy to get caught in that other stuff, but really it's perhaps time to take a look beneath the surface.
Right, definitely. Because one of the things that sometimes people don't realize is that we cannot trust everything our mind tells us. Our mind has 7,000 thoughts, but if you believe everything your mind tells you, you're going to be yeah.
Yeah, we tell ourselves stories. Yeah, it's
Yes. Yeah.
and it's often hard to question, like you said at the start. You can't divorce yourself, but you can listen to yourself, and you can listen to stuff that you've kind of that isn't necessarily true about yourself as well.
Right, right. And some of the thoughts that come in our mind that are negative or put down to whatever, you have to realize who's the source of that? Who has rented space up here? Yeah, yeah. And sometimes we carry things from childhood or from previous relationship that clutter our mind or on what's actually happening right now.
Mm. I think it's also very hard, if you have been hurt. I mean, we've all been hurt in some way, but like if you've been hurt, it's very easy to put your guard up again. How do people, how would you recommend people like potentially open themselves again to a new relationship when they have all this, when it's just like, oh, am I going to go again?
Right, right. So it is important to grieve. Every relationship is, and when a relationship ends, it's like a death. Sometimes you're shocked, you're angry, but it is important to grieve. And then as you're in the process of grieving, also doing some self-reflection.
Abs-
Of course, every relationship is it's different, but sometimes there are patterns. What did I contribute? What led to this relationship and that aspect? Because what you really want, I don't think we're trained to have a relationship. No one really talks to us about it. So
mm.
maybe in the beginning, these relationships were C's and D's, you know, and hopefully, it gets better, maybe that last one was a B. Okay, now that's like need an A, kind of relationship. So as you about to go out into the dating world again, it's really good to write down uh, your stuff. What do you bring to the table? What's good for you? But it's also good to write down exactly what you're looking for because there's a thing called the law of attraction, which you put out in the atmosphere, you get back. And it's not just, I want a tall, dark, handsome man. I mean, that's, the world can see you 50 million of those. But it's those intrinsic, those really qualities that you're really looking for. And have that list on your phone where you see it so you don't get distracted because sometimes our eyes get distracted by
Pretty
a variety
colors,
of things.
sounds,
Yes,
all the pretty flowers and sounds and colors around
yes,
there, out
yes,
there.
yeah, yeah. But you need a list because if you don't, I don't know over where you're at, but if you go to the grocery store and you're hungry and you don't have a list, sometimes you pick up things you don't need to.
You come home with 5 frozen meals and a bag of chips, and yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've consciously tried to take that space between relationships to heal, as you're saying. I've often found it a little, perhaps each to their own, but a little bit of a concern when someone just bounces from one to another, which I understand. But personally, because it might be easier just to fall back into another
Right.
relationship, but through a particular big breakup I had, I ensured that I took the time necessary to heal, because there was really no point for me or the other person trying to delve into another relationship when I wasn't healed.
Right. Right.
And that
Exactly.
and that took a shitload of self-reflection as well, being and honesty with myself about um how was I accountable to all this as well.
Right, exactly. And that space of waiting, you should actually live your life as if someone was already there. So don't wait for someone to be there to go to a sporting event or the movies. Take yourself there. Take yourself kayaking or whatever. You know what I'm saying? You should be moving. Don't sit on the couch.
I love it. Time with self. I for a long time I couldn't do it, but I absolutely learned to love, which is a big thing. But yeah, it's tough for some people to do that. I read also you do a thing, vacation counseling. Is that literally holiday? Is that in reference to holidays, or is
Yes. So, but it is a little bit in reference to holidays, as you guys call that over there. So, vacation counseling is my couples retreats. Because many times people, when they think about couples counseling, they're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to go sit and spill my guts out and it's boring and that kind of stuff. So, what I do is I have help couples take a vacation, have fun, and we also do therapy.
that's pretty
But there,
cool?
yeah, but therapy isn't just always sitting on the couch spilling out your guts. We do a lot of play.
That's
You know,
awesome.
yeah, we play
That's
with
great.
Legos, or we've done basketball, we've done boating. We do whatever, golf. We do whatever.
But
Yes.
I imagine, correct me if I'm wrong, I imagine by observing the couples in those, you probably learn a lot more than just sitting on the couch talking.
Oh, exactly, exactly. You get to learn when you see a couple play. You get to see how they truly interact.
That's I haven't heard of that. That's really cool, and because I think couples counseling can be quite an ominous thing, and especially if somebody feels like they're going to be ganged up on, or um, so yeah. But to throw it into that, that's a really cool concept.
Right. And you just never know what, of course, we do a little bit of talk therapy. And I remember one couple we were doing some talk therapy and he got all upset. And then he was upset about because he's also an alcoholic. And I was like, come on, let's go play some Legos. And so we went and played Legos and he just started crying. I haven't had Legos. My parents took my Lego thing when I was 8 or 12, and all this stuff started to peel out. And, you
Wow,
know, yeah,
that's that's really cool. I just say that because I've done therapy myself, and I found it very intellectual and very like it wasn't until I did some stuff that was more focused on physicality and play and actually
yes,
get out of that heavy headspace, um,
right.
that can reveal uh, a lot of valuable things, I think.
Right. Yeah, it does. It does. It helps you to be creative and to let go.
Mm.
Yeah. And yeah.
Do you get is are these short term stays, or you do quite a you offer a number of like blocks of
So
time?
so I do one couple at a time, in the sense of and those are about a 5 day, 5 to 7 day retreats. I've also taken this and done some groups up in Costa Rica and other places here in the US. Yes. And I have kind of done a little bit of the virtual aspect too, but I really try to do more of the
Mm.
in person aspect. Yes.
Cool. It might tie into my next thing, which is on the show. I like to have guests propose a challenge that listeners can try. It doesn't have to be anything big or small, but relative to I mean, there's so many themes in terms of intimacy and in terms of play, but do you have anything that springs to mind that listeners might be able to try?
Okay. So just because we're talking about play, and the thing that just popped in my mind is if you're out there and you think I've been talking about all this play, go back and think about what did I play with when I was a kid? What did I play with when I was a kid? And try to incorporate a part of that into your relationship.
Mm.
Yeah. So one of the things I used to play with is a lot of Barbies and all that kind of stuff. And of course I do therapy, but in the Barbies, they used to act out. Okay. And so one of the things that I've incorporated now for myself is I do improv. Yes, I take improv lessons, but I also incorporate that in my relationship. Sometimes you just be random people and we're just having a conversation about nothing. Yeah. And it's just very fun. We laugh and all that kind of stuff. So that would be my challenge. And I know I've been talking about intimacy, and I'm also a mental health counselor. But when you're truly fully present and you're playing, it decreases that anxiety because anxiety is about worrying about the future and all that kind of stuff. And it decreases that depression of putting yourself down and just no energy. So try that exercise.
The integration of the childhood play into the modern stuff is really cool to integrate the two. I've done some improv too, and I found that really beneficial because it really challenges that. It challenges you to be present. It challenges you to go at the fear and just embrace whatever's happening in front of you, no matter how like ridiculous it is.
Exactly.
I was in a class and there was like a boat sinking and I was trying to like climb out the boat and but if you start going, this is ridiculous, you lose that spontaneity and that presence. So
Right.
yeah.
Right. Definitely.
No, very cool. Where can people find you?
So people can, I'm on Instagram, Dr. April B, and on Facebook, Dr. April Brown. And if you just want to look on a website, just follow my name, www.dr April, APRIL, and Brown, BROWN.com.
Awesome. Well, it's been really cool to chat to you. It's short, but I think we've covered a lot. So thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you, Daniel, for having me on the show.